Good morning everyone. This is class 12th, subject chemistry, chapter 5, lecture number 5. In this lecture, I will be discussing the homework that I gave you in lecture number 4 and then we will do the revision of this chapter. Now first start with the homework solution of lecture number 4. First question is explain the zone refining and chromatography. And the answer for this question is this zone refining and the chromatography both are the refining method which we use for the purification of crude metal. Now first is zone refining. This method is based on the principle that impurities are more soluble in the molten state than in the solid state of the metal. Or in other words, you can say that when the melt of an impure metal is allowed to cool, the pure metal crystallizes out while the impurities remains in the melt. That is, impurities will remain in the molten form and the metal crystallizes out from that impurity. Next is chromatography. This method is based on the adsorption power of the component, and the principle of chromatography is different components of a mixture are adsorbed to different extents on an adsorbent. For example, if a mixture contains 3 components A, B and C, and if we want to separate those components by chromatography method, then that will depend on the adsorption power. Thus, this method is used for the purification of components from a mixture. So these two methods are the refining methods. Second question is name the common elements present in the anode mud in the electrolytic refining of copper. And the answer for this question is when we do the electrolytic refining of copper, the impurities like selenium, tellurium, antimony, these impurities they will remain in the solution and that is known as anode mud. Next question is what is meant by chromatography. So this we have already discussed in question number 1. Now question number 4 is what criteria is followed for the selection of the stationary phase in chromatography? And the answer for this question is the stationary phase is selected in such a way that the impurities are more strongly adsorbed on the stationary phase. As in chromatography, we have two phases, stationary phase and mobile phase. And the stationary phase is such that the impurities are more strongly adsorbed on it, so that when the column is extracted, the impurities will remain on the stationary phase while the pure component is easily eluted. So, on this criteria, stationary phase is chosen. Next question is describe the methods for refining of nickel. So the answer for this question is nickel is purified by vapor phase refining, and in vapor phase refining we have Mond's process. So first of all, nickel will combine with carbon monoxide so that a volatile compound formed, and after that when we decompose the volatile compound, then we will get our pure nickel. So this nickel is purified by vapor phase refining, or in vapor phase refining we have Mond's process. So Mond process is used for the purification of nickel. Next question is outline the principles of refining of metals by the following methods. First is zone refining. So the principle of zone refining is impurities are more soluble in molten state than in solid state of a metal. That is, when we heat our impure metal, what will happen? Impurities will remain in the molten form and our pure metal crystallizes out from that impurity. Next is electrolytic refining. So in electrolytic refining, the metal which we want to purify, anode is made up of that metal and cathode is made up of pure metal of. That is, for example, if we want to purify copper from impure copper, so what we will do, anode is made up of impure copper and cathode is made up of pure copper, and the electrolytic solution that contain copper, that is the salt, contain copper ions. So when we do the electrolysis, the impure copper will come in the solution, that is at anode what will happen, oxidation reaction will happen, and at cathode pure copper will deposit. So in this way we can do the refining by electrolytic method, and the principle is based on the reduction potential. Next is vapor phase refining. The principle of vapor phase refining is, first is the metal should form a volatile compound with a suitable reagent, and then the volatile compound should be easily decomposable so that we can get the pure metal. So this is the principle of vapor phase refining. So these are the 6 questions which I gave you in lecture number 4. Now we will start with the revision of our chapter. So first is, what are minerals and ores? And the answer is, minerals are naturally occurring chemical substances in the form of which metal occur in the earth along with impurities. Those are known as minerals, and the mineral from which the metal is conveniently and economically extracted, that is called an ore. So from here we can say that all ores are minerals, but all minerals are not ore. Now in this chapter we will learn the steps for the extraction of metal from ores, and there are 4 major steps in the extraction of metal from ores. First is crushing and grinding, second is concentration of ore, third step is isolation of metal from concentrated ore, and fourth is purification of metal. Now we will discuss one by one all the 4 steps. Now first we will start with our concentration of ore. Now first is, what do you mean by concentration of ores? So the removal of unwanted earthy impurities from the ore, that is known as concentration of ores, and it is also known as ore dressing or benefaction process. Now in this we have 4 processes. First is hydraulic washing. Now this is the method for the concentration of ores, and in this method the lighter earthy particles are freed from the heavier ore particles by washing with water is called hydraulic washing. In this process what we will do, we will wash our ore with water. Now the lighter impurities, they will wash away with water and we get our concentrated ore. Next is electromagnetic separation. This method is used for the concentration of ores which are either in which ores are in magnetic in nature, or the gangue particles or the earthy impurities are magnetic in nature. With the help of magnetic roller we can separate our impurities, magnetic impurities or magnetic ores. Third is froth flotation method. This method is used for the concentration of sulfide ores. In this method a suspension is made with water, that is, first of all we will mix our ore with water and then put in a container in which a rotating pedal is used. Now what will happen, along with suspension we are adding collectors and froth stabilizers to suspension. The function of collectors is, that is, the collectors will enhance the non-wettability of the ore particles, and the froth stabilizers, they will stabilize the froth which is formed when the rotating pedal rotates. Now by this way we can concentrate our sulfide ores. What will happen, when the wheel will rotate, froth will form, and because froths are lighter in weight, so they will come out at the surface from where they can be skimmed off. Fourth is leaching. By this method we can also concentrate our ore. Now in leaching what we will do, we will dissolve our ore in a suitable reagent in which the ore will dissolve but the impurities will not dissolve. Aluminium, the ore of bauxite that contains aluminium, is concentrated by this method. So these are the 4 methods for the concentration of ores. Now after concentration of ores, the next step is extraction of crude metal from the concentrated ore, and in this we have 2 steps. First is conversion to oxide, that is, we will convert our concentrated ore to oxide form, and after that we will do the reduction of that oxide to metal. So in extraction of crude metal from concentrated ore we have 2 steps. First is conversion to oxide and second is reduction of oxide to metal. Now first is conversion to oxide. In this we have two processes, calcination and roasting, by which we can convert our concentrated ore to metal oxide. So first is calcination. In calcination it is heating of concentrated ore strongly in the limited supply of air or in the absence of air. And this method is used to remove carbonates from the concentrated ore, or if the ore contains some impurities of water. So this method is used in removing the moistures from the concentrated ore. Now here we have carbonate, this is calcium carbonate. Now when we heat, what will happen? It will convert to its respective oxide and the CO2 gas will release. Now next is, what is roasting? So again, roasting is heated the concentrated ore in the regular supply of air in a furnace at a temperature below the melting point of metal, and this method is used for the conversion of sulfide ores to their oxides. Here we have sulfide ore of zinc. So what we will do, we will heat this ore in the regular supply of air, and here this zinc sulfide, it will convert to zinc oxide and this SO2 gas will release. Now after the conversion of concentrated ore to its oxide, next step is reduction of metal oxide to metal. And the process of extracting the metal by heating the metal oxide with a suitable reagent, that is suitable reducing agent, that is known as pyrometallurgy. Now we will do the Ellingham diagram, that how metal oxide reduces to metal. Ellingham diagram is the plot of delta G formation versus temperature for the oxides, that is Ellingham diagram. Similarly, we can also draw the Ellingham diagram for sulfides. Now in Ellingham diagram, or you can say how Ellingham diagram helps us to choose a suitable reducing agent that can convert metal oxide to metal. Now in Ellingham diagram we have three types of lines. One which is parallel to the temperature axis, one which is going in upward direction, and another one is which is going in downward direction. Now first of all, we will understand why such type of lines are observed in Ellingham diagram. So here we have a reaction, carbon plus oxygen is giving carbon dioxide. Now if we calculate the entropy, so that is number of product minus number of reactant, and here we are calculating in terms of gaseous molecules. So on right hand side we have 1 mole of gaseous molecule, and on left hand side we have 1 mole of O2. So if we want to calculate delta S, that will be equal to what? 1 minus 1, that is 0. Now as we know that Gibbs equation is delta G equals to delta H minus T delta S. Now for this reaction delta S is 0. Now if we put the value in this equation, then it will become what? Delta G equals to delta H minus T, and delta S is 0. So from here delta G equals to delta H, and from here we can see that delta G is independent of temperature. That is why this line is parallel to x-axis, that is temperature axis. Now for this line that is going in upward direction, the reaction is carbon monoxide plus oxygen is again giving carbon dioxide, but in this case if we want to calculate the delta S, it comes out to be negative, because on right hand side we have 2 moles of gas and on left hand side we have 3 moles of gas. So 2 minus 3 is minus 1, it means delta S is negative. So again when we put the value in this equation, delta G equals to delta H minus T delta S. So this T delta S, when delta S is negative, this will become what? Positive. So equation will become delta G equals to delta H minus T plus T delta S. Now when we compare this equation with the equation of a straight line, that is y equals to mx plus c. So from here the slope, the value of the slope will be positive. That is why this line is going in upward direction. Similarly for this we can calculate delta S, and this comes out to be positive. And when we put this delta S equals to positive value in this equation, delta H minus T delta S, the slope comes out to be negative. That is why this line is going in downward direction. Now if we want to do the reduction of a metal oxide to metal, so what will happen? Metal oxide, it will reduce to metal and oxygen will release. Similarly, the reducing agent which we are choosing, that will accept oxygen and the respective oxide will form. So in Ellingham diagram we have so many lines, and the conclusion is the line which lies lower in the Ellingham diagram, for that delta G is more negative, and that line can be used for the reduction of the above lines. Now this is the Ellingham diagram. Here we have different lines for the formation of oxides. Here we have Mg plus oxygen, that is giving magnesium oxide. Then we have oxide of aluminium. Then we have oxide of silicon, zinc oxide, carbon dioxide. Then we have oxide of iron. Now the conclusion of Ellingham diagram is the line which lies lower in the Ellingham diagram, that can be used for the reduction of these above lines. For example, if we compare these two lines, that is magnesium oxide and aluminium oxide. So in this diagram, below A point, means below 1623 Kelvin, the line of Mg is lower than that of aluminium. So from here we can say that below 1623 Kelvin, this magnesium can be used for the reduction of aluminium oxide. But after 1623, the line for the magnesium oxide goes higher and the line for the aluminium oxide is lower than this magnesium oxide. So we can see that above 1623 Kelvin, this magnesium line cannot be used for the reduction of aluminium, whereas above 1623 Kelvin, we can use aluminium for the reduction of magnesium oxide. Similarly, if we compare the line of carbon monoxide and iron oxide, so from this Ellingham diagram, we can see that the line for the carbon monoxide is lower as compared to the line for iron oxide. So from here we can say that at lower temperature we cannot use carbon monoxide for the reduction of iron oxide. Similarly, if we want to choose the reducing agent for the reduction of zinc oxide, so again we cannot use carbon monoxide as a reducing agent for the reduction of zinc oxide, because in lower temperature range, that is up to 1073 Kelvin or a temperature up to 1600, the line for the zinc oxide is still lower. So up to this temperature we cannot use carbon monoxide for the reduction of zinc oxide. So the conclusion is that the line which is lower in Ellingham diagram, that can be used for the reduction of these above lines. But the limitation of the Ellingham diagram is that it can tell about the feasibility of the reaction, but it cannot tell about the kinetics of the reaction. That is how fast the rate of reaction will take place, that cannot be predicted by Ellingham diagram. Now next is extraction of iron from its oxide. This is the first application of Ellingham diagram. Now first step is crushing of ore, then concentration. After that we will convert our concentrated ore to metal oxide. For that we will do calcination to remove water or to decompose carbonates if any carbonate is present. After that we will do roasting to remove or to convert sulfide ores into oxide. Now after that, after roasting, we will put our ore along with limestone and coke as a reducing agent we are using in this process in the blast furnace. Now what will happen? Several reaction takes place in blast furnace, and for the reduction of iron oxide to iron, again we will take the help of Ellingham diagram. Now here we are using coke as a reducing agent. So here we have the line for the formation of iron oxide. This is the line for the formation of carbon monoxide from carbon dioxide from carbon monoxide, and this is the line for the formation of carbon to carbon monoxide. Now from this Ellingham diagram we can see that below 1073 Kelvin, this can be used as a reducing agent for the reduction of iron oxide to iron, and above 1073 Kelvin, we can use this line, that is we can use this reducing agent for the reduction of iron oxide to iron. Therefore, these are the reactions taking place in the blast furnace. First is zone of combustion. What will happen? In this zone, the temperature is around 2170 Kelvin, and in this carbon will combine with oxygen and carbon dioxide will form. And this process is highly exothermic. That is why the temperature in this zone is 2170 Kelvin. Now next is zone of heat absorption. In this zone, what will happen? Carbon dioxide, which is released in first zone of combustion, that will combine with carbon and carbon monoxide will form. Now here heat absorption will take place, and that is why the temperature in this zone is less than the zone of combustion. Third step is, here we are using limestone along with ore. So what it will do, if we have any impurity of silica, so first of all this calcium carbonate, it will convert to calcium oxide, and then this calcium oxide, it will combine with silica and slag will form. After that, zone of reduction, in this reduction will take place, that is below 1073 Kelvin, carbon monoxide will reduce iron oxides, and above 1073 Kelvin, coke will reduce FeO to Fe. Then we have zone of fusion, that is the lower part of the furnace, and the temperature range is 1400 to 1600. Now in this range, that is the lower part of the furnace, in this we have slag and molten iron, and that molten iron is known as pig iron. It contains 4% of carbon content and many other impurities like sulfur, phosphorus, silicon, and this type of iron casts into variety of shapes, that is we can give variety of shapes using this carbon, pig iron. Next is cast iron. Now we can make cast iron by this pig iron, and this can be done by melting pig iron with scrap iron and coke by using hot air blast, and by doing this we can remove impurities by 1%, that is it contains 4% carbon, pig iron contains 4% carbon, whereas this cast iron contains 3% carbon, and this is hard and brittle. And the third form of iron is wrought iron, which is the purest form of iron. So these are the three forms of iron, and this is the extraction of iron from its oxides. Next we have extraction of copper from cuprous oxide. Now again first step is crushing and grinding of the ore. After that concentration. Now in this concentration is done by a froth flotation method, because generally the ores of copper contain sulfide, and the method for the concentration of sulfide ores is froth flotation method. After that we will do the roasting to convert them to oxides, that is copper cuprous sulfide in presence of oxygen, it will convert to its oxide and sulfur dioxide will release. After that we will use a reducing agent for the conversion of this cuprous oxide to copper. Now these are the steps, but in actual what happens, the ore is put in furnace along with silica. Now the ore of copper contains FeS, iron sulfide, as an impurity. So what it will do, when we do the roasting, this FeS combines with oxygen and converts to iron oxide. And here we are adding silica, so what will happen, in presence of the silica, this FeO will combine with SiO2 and slag will form. And iron is more reactive than copper. So what it will do, first of all this FeS, it will convert to FeO, and if some amount of cuprous sulfide converts to Cu2O, what will happen, again with this cuprous oxide, this FeS will combine and we will get Cu2S. The conclusion is that in the furnace we have cuprous sulfide along with some iron sulfide, and the mixture of cuprous sulfide and iron sulfide is known as copper mate. That is, Cu2s plus FeS. Now how we will extract copper from this cuprous sulfide and this Fe from this copper mate? So we will put our copper mate in a silica line converter, and from where the slag of iron will be removed, and what will happen, this cuprous sulfide, it will combine with oxygen and copper oxide, cuprous oxide will form. Once this cuprous oxide will form, again it will react with cuprous sulfide, and here we are getting our copper. Now what will happen, when the combination of cuprous sulfide and copper sulfide takes place, the sulfur dioxide will release, and as the metal cools, this dissolved SO2 escapes from the surface of the copper. And what happens, some of the gas bubbles, they are trapped in the metal surface, and that copper that is obtained by this method, that is known as blister copper. So these are the steps in the extraction of copper from cuprous oxide. Now next is extraction of zinc from zinc oxide. Now similar steps are done in case of zinc from zinc oxide, but the reducing agent here is carbon, and it is used as high temperature, because below 1673 Kelvin the line of CO and the line of zinc oxide, it lies lower than these lines. So we can say that we cannot use, that is below 1673 Kelvin, we cannot use carbon or carbon monoxide as a reducing agent for the reduction of this zinc oxide. So at higher temperature, this carbon, it will act as a reducing agent, and the zinc oxide will convert to zinc. We can also extract our metal by electrochemical principles of metallurgy. In this, what we will do, the more reactive metals has large negative potential. So for example, if we want to extract copper from the solution, so what we will do, we will choose a metal that has large negative potential. For example, copper plus 2 plus Fe is giving copper plus Fe plus 2. Now if we calculate the potential for this reaction, it comes out to be positive. And when we calculate delta G by this formula, delta G comes out to be negative. It means that the metal which is more reactive, that will remain in the solution, and the metal which is less reactive, that will reduce from the solution to its respective reduced form. Now after the reduction of metal oxide to metal, next is purification or refining, the process by which we purify the metal, crude metal, that is known as refining. So first is, in refining, the first method is distillation method. The distillation method, it is used for the purification of zinc and mercury, and in this method what we will do, the impure metal is heated in an iron retort, and the vapor are condensed in a separate receiver. The pure metal distills, and the impurities will left behind because of higher boiling point. So this is the distillation method, and by this zinc and mercury are purified by this method. Next is liquefaction. Now this method is used for the purification of such metals which contain impurities and the impurities has high melting point as compared to crude metal. Now here we have impure metal, that is crude metal along with impurities. So when we heat this impure metal, what will happen? Because the metal has lower melting point, first the metal will melt, and after that it will flow through the surface, and here we are collecting our pure metal. So this liquefaction method is used when the melting point of the metals are lower than those of the impurities. Now next method is electrolytic refining. This method is used for the purification of copper, silver, gold, lead, aluminium and zinc. In this process, what we will do, the impure metal is made, that is the anode is made up of impure metal and the cathode is made up of pure metal. And this electrolytic solution contains the same metal as we want to purify. For example, if we want to purify copper, So anode is made up of impure copper, cathode is made up of pure copper, and this electrolytic solution also contain copper ions. Now what will happen when the electrolysis takes place at anode? This copper will convert to copper plus 2 electrons, and at cathode this copper plus 2 will accept 2 electron and deposit at cathode. This copper is pure copper. Now what happen? In this impure copper we have impurities. So being less reactive in nature, these impurity they will deposit under the anode, and that is known as anode mud. This anode mud contains the impurities of antimony, selenium, tellurium, etc. So by this electrolytic refining we can purify copper as well as these metals. Next method is zone refining. Zone refining method is used for the purification of semiconductors, germanium, silicon, boron, gallium and indium. And the principle of this method is impurities are more soluble in melt than in solid state of the metal. In this process, the impure metal is converted into a rod and placed in an inert atmosphere. Now what will happen with these moving heaters? These are moving heaters. They will move along this rod. What will happen? The impurities will melt and collected at the one end in molten foam, whereas the pure metal it will crystallizes out at one end of the rod. From here we can collect our metal and the impurities will remain in the molten state. Now next method is vapor phase refining. Now this method is used for the refining of nickel, zirconium, titanium. And the principle of vapor phase refining is, first, metal should form a volatile compound with an available reagent. So first of all, metal will form a volatile compound. After that, this volatile compound should be easily decomposable. Means that compound should be decomposed. So in vapor phase refining, first is Mond process. Mond process is used for the purification of nickel. First of all, this nickel will combine with carbon monoxide and form tetracarbonyl nickel. Now this compound is volatile and decomposed in this temperature range. And after that decomposition, here we are getting our pure nickel. Similarly, we have one more method, that is Van Arkel method, which is used for the purification of zirconium and titanium. So what we will do, first of all, this zirconium, it will combine with iodine and we have a complex of zirconium. After that, in 1800 Kelvin temperature range, this complex will decompose and we are getting our pure zirconium. Next method in refining is chromatographic method, and the principle of chromatography is different components of a mixture are differently adsorbed on an adsorbent. The principle is based on the adsorption power. In this we have two phase, stationary phase and mobile phase. Stationary phase generally solid, and in solid either we take alumina or silica. And in mobile phase we have liquid. Now for example, we have a mixture in which three components are there and we want to separate these components A, B and C. The property of A, B and C is that A is strongly adsorbed on the surface of adsorbent, B is moderately adsorbed and C is weakly adsorbed. So this is our column in which we have filled silica gel, and here we have a mixture which contain A, B and C. From here we are passing mobile phase, that is liquid solvent, into this column. What will happen? A, which is strongly adsorbed, it will adsorb on the top of this column. B is moderately adsorbed, so it will come lower to the A, and C, which is weakly adsorbed, it will be at the bottom of the column. Now from here we are adding our liquid solvent. So first of all we can collect our C component. Similarly, after adding more liquid we can collect B, and in the end we can collect our A. So in this way we can collect our A, B, C components separately. So this chromatographic method is used for the purification and for the separation of components from a mixture, and this will depend on the adsorption power. So these are the purification method by which we can purify our crude metal. So after doing this, you can solve assignment which is given on EDQuark site. Thank you. Have a nice day.